Okay, so I'm going to make the bold pronouncement that Groundhog Day is the best romantic comedy of all time. And today it celebrates its 30th anniversary. You probably think, well, Groundhog Day was 10 days ago. What do you mean the 30th anniversary? But the movie didn't open until February 12th, 1993. So today's the actual 30th anniversary. It was trying to capitalize on Valentine's Day. A lot of critics would probably say the best romantic comedy of all time was maybe a Cary Grant movie from way back in the day, or a Woody Allen movie from the 70s, or perhaps even a Meg Ryan movie from the late 80s or early 90s. Now, I'm going to say that none of those are correct, because just right there, the way I phrase that, you can tell inherent problems with picking any of those, to where you're watching a formula. Yes, Bringing Up Baby and His Girl Friday, those might have been okay movies for the time period they're in, but that's a very specific formula. The Meg Ryan movies, of course, they are as well. And then the Woody Allen movies, even though Annie Hall won Best Picture in 1977, and it's probably the best romantic comedy that he specifically made, you're still watching elements that he's used in a lot of other movies, like Manhattan. Groundhog Day is totally different, totally unique. You can't say like, oh, it's one of those Bill Murray, Andy McDowell comedies, and they made so many of them together. Funny thing is, they didn't even really like each other on set when they were filming the movie, even though they have terrific chemistry. You almost can't believe that they didn't get along that well. Most romantic comedies are not particularly funny or romantic. And this movie manages to be both. It's laugh out loud hilarious in a lot of different moments, and yet also very romantic. The romance is believable, and yet they don't start out that way. You almost think he doesn't even really seem right for Rita, but he becomes right for Rita by the end of the movie, and a totally believable couple, which is hard for movies to do, to pull off that chemistry and that narrative of maybe they don't seem right for each other in the beginning, but they do at the end. But the movie's even really more than just funny or just a romance. It's philosophical. You could watch it over and over and see something that never noticed before, and it could be something obvious like, oh, Michael Shannon, that's his first movie part. But also the subtext of what we're watching, to where some people say it mirrors the 5 stages of grief, where you learn that you're about to die, and then you go through first denial, which Phil does, then anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. And you can see that playing out throughout Groundhog Day. He has been handed sort of an eternal time loop death sentence. He even tries to kill himself at one point. And the idea that the movie is able to play that for laughs and also make those scenes funny is really special. And then there's deeper questions like, well, how exactly does he break the time loop? The movie doesn't really say exactly how he breaks it. We know it's conditioned to his behavior. It's something to do with universe or whatever's controlling this. They want him to change. Almost makes it more of a fantasy than science fiction. Sci-fi movies sometimes have like very scientific explanations for their time loops. This is more like, no, your character as a person needs to change. Until it does, you're not getting out of here, although he doesn't pick up on that till he's given up trying to get out. And so people could say, well, it finally broke the time loop because he finally had the perfect day, but he's not trying to have the perfect day. So is it because he's finally kind of given up on having the perfect day, and he's just doing this stuff because he wants to do it? He truly wants to help these people. He truly wants to make the town a better place. He wants to get to know everybody, where earlier on in the movie, he's like, oh, these people are hicks, and he kind of dismisses them and thinks he's a lot better than they are, but he gets to know them all really well, to the point where he even wants to move to the town. Even when he's free from the time loop, he wants to be stuck there. Is it conditioned almost like Buddhism, to where he's given up the longing of wanting something else or thinking that something else is even out there, and he just wants to be a good person just for its own sake? He's not even really trying to do good works to break the time loop. Or is it because Andy McDowell finally loves him back? He loves her for a while throughout the movie, but not till she loves him back does it snow. At the very last day, when they finally kiss and they're about to go to bed together, the snow signifies the time loop is broken and he's going to move on, because she cares about him in a way that she didn't before. Which you could interpret that the cynical way that the early Phil does, and be like, oh, well, she doesn't really want him, even though he's given her several perfect days throughout the movie, until other people want him, until other women are bidding on him in the town. He's the most popular person. Prom King syndrome of somebody who's really big in a small town. They go to a city and everybody's like, well, what was so great about that guy? Phil even wants to keep that going by wanting to move there. But that's the cynical way. The other way would be to say that Phil never really loved her until she loves him back, which is to say that you can love somebody as much as you want to from afar, but only when they care about you are you really in love with them, because before you're in love at them instead of in love with them when they love you back. These are great questions that you could ask over and over as you watch a movie. It even kind of has a lot to say about small towns and how they can be suffocating for people, especially even people who live there, where it's easy to overlook these people when Phil first gets there. When he asked the guys at the bar, he's like, what would you do if you were stuck in the same place day after day and every day was exactly the same and nothing you did mattered? And the one guy says, that pretty much sums it up for me. A good allegory for living in a small town, or perhaps even middle age, to where every day can feel pretty much the same or you're in a rut. Really great as a character study. It's really great as a philosophical movie. It's great as as a romance, it's great as a comedy, because you could watch it on a loop and discover whatever you wanted to about it, that it really might be the best romantic comedy of all time.